Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
Like I was trying to give him my hardest questions. We're diving into like epigenetics, quantum physics. I'm just like, tell me everything.
Just the term giving him the sauce is just.
Bro, I was saucing him up. And he was, I was teeing him up and he was just absolutely smoking it.
It's like,
he was on. I mean, he was one of the smartest humans I think I've ever met.
Remember we were in Northern Ireland. We met this guy selling coffee out of a cart by one of the national park things. And
this already sounds like a great story.
well, it's just a very simple story. He was just a very nice guy, and he was Scottish, which is weird because their accent is so like harsh.
It's very abrasive.
Weird hearing like someone be nice in that accent is almost like kind of a conundrum in itself. So it just felt weird, but I was just like, this dude's so nice. I want to go to Scotland. I've
My
heard
sweet little moon pie. I don't know.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. Something like that.
Didn't like it after I said it.
Sweet.
It's on
That
the
was
record
Australian,
forever now.
I feel like.
Yeah, I know.
Sweet little moon pie.
I was Scottish.
Crikey.
That's how my wife is. My wife has one accent. That's like every time she does an accent, it's always that one accent. She always sounds some mix between British and
Okay.
I don't know, some
So let's-
Spanish.
And mystery.
Let's delve into some sketchy waters. If you could absolutely nail one accent, what would it be?
Probably British.
I'm going Indian just because it's like it's so distinct, and I think it's just my favorite. You know
I
Russell
feel like
Peters.
British
You know
I
Russell
could pull
Peters.
off. If I tried to sound Indian, it's going to come across.
If you could nail it and pretend you're British, I feel like you could. There's a lot of you could do well for yourself if you put yourself in the right position, like
want-
opportunities.
like Peaky Blinders thick.
Oh, like that Liverpool, like
Like
just
what,
that
like
real.
what's he even saying?
That
Real
show.
messy,
Are
yeah.
you watching that right now?
I've seen the first season, I think.
Oh, dude, they just come out with a new season, and it's just
Heard about
like
that.
it's so good.
It's a good show.
You guys need to watch so we can talk about it because
The Peaky Blinders.
that's
How was that?
if not
1
8
to
out of 10. I'll give you 8.
Wow.
I'll take 8.
it's generous.
It's, yeah.
All right, I usually stay around. Hello, governor. That's where I stay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Only those two words.
I'd give that a 6.
I will say,
harsh judge.
even though England itself is a very, I mean, granted, we're talking about the UK, so it's more just England. But when you just England has so many different dialects, they also have like you know how like a lot of like people with a Cajun, Louisiana accent, you can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
They have the equivalent. They have the
Country.
yeah, the equivalent of that in like England, like where there's country folk that just talk like what we would consider like, you know, uneducated.
I just think of that one buddy from Waterboy that's just like,
Oh yeah,
just can't
Coach.
understand anything
No, it's so
ever.
funny. So I love that. I mean, it's just, and then like someone translates. Well, there was a movie. Oh no, Clarkson's Farm. Did you ever watch that? Oh, it's so funny. You know Jeremy Clarkson, the guy who did Top Gear and all those shows. He had some controversy around him.
Jeremy Clarkson.
But he's a big UK personality, and basically, like, he on this farm, he had this dude that was just did that same thing. His security manager, it just mumbled the whole time, and it's just they had that character. Like, it's just so great. I love it when
That's awesome.
because it's half reality TV and it's half scripted. Like, that's like probably my favorite kind of TV when it's just like it's not supposed to be all reality and just capture all this stupid drama. It's more like it's like scripted funny bits inside of like a reality setting to where it's like not completely under the control of whoever's doing it, right? But it's just like it's basically scripted. So I don't know. I love that kind of TV.
That'd be a weird job.
A weird job.
A producer on a reality TV show. You're just like, hey, piss those people off really quick.
Yeah.
'Cause we need an emotional reaction, and we gotta get under their skin for good television.
Yeah.
Diabolical.
You got to think like some of those guys are probably like stand-up dudes, and then some of them are probably just like, you know, just bottom of the barrel scum.
That'd be tough.
They're just
On any
like-
given day, like
like with no conscience.
you're just like, all right, we need to ruin all of these people's lives over and over again
over and over.
for entertainment.
Yeah, it's. I don't watch most reality TV. I mean, Yeah, I can't do that.
Dude, I'm part of Bachelor Nation, man. I
know.
I
I'm
think
aware.
I just think it's the most fascinating social experiment. Like
It's
you
so
put
funny.
30 people in the same house dating the same dude. And then
What could
you
go
still have every single season, you still have a massive chunk of these people. Like you almost want to sit them down and just be like, you do know what you signed up for, right? But
Oh yeah, that
here
classic,
we are.
That classic, like I didn't sign up for this. Well, you know, you kind of did.
He likes her.
Well, and then without fail, it's like who's gonna be the person that's like, hey, that guy's not here for the right reasons. I don't want to be the bad guy.
No
but
one's there for the right
that's-
reasons.
He's a bad man.
And then the right reason's a wrong reason. Like it's not the whole thing.
like clockwork, bro. Someone comes out and they're just like, oh, they're not here for the right reasons, as if like
Yeah.
it's just so fascinating to me.
Trying to find love.
That's all I'm gonna say about it.
Yeah. So my iPad's at home. I forgot it. So I'm gonna be mostly I'm gonna look stuff up on my phone. But basically today I want to talk about Roe v. Wade. It's the big issue right now. Topic, I should say, that everyone's talking about. So Justin, since you have a computer, or I guess Luke, whoever, Gabby, you guys all have computers. I just realized this, and I don't have that. All right, nice.
Where's your pooter, bro?
My pooter. Are we talking about the same thing? So can we just look up like originally what Roe v. Wade meant? Right. I think we're all familiar with the controversy. We don't need
Kind of the context you're saying.
yeah, just like okay, what originally the ruling? I think it was 1973 or something like that. The original decision. What did it mean? Right. What was it defined as?
So
It's probably a wiki or something. you can look up.
Yeah. So I'll try to get a
Wiki.
quick synopsis. In my understanding,
Wiki. I don't want your understanding. I want you to read it.
offended.
And then we talk about our understanding. You know, we got to do this in the right
Fine.
order. It's not like here's my opinion, and then we'll just figure out what
At
it's
first,
about.
I feel like I need to go to DuckDuckGo.
Oh my gosh, you're one of those.
Hey, bro, if it's good enough for Rogan, it's good enough for me.
All right,
Duck, duck, goose.
it's it's a play on that, I think. But
I get it.
yeah, it's
You
about
still get there through Google Chrome. Like I'm just like it's the same. It's got to be the same.
probably yeah.
I mean, I don't know how.
Is that a Sioux Falls shirt? What does that say? Sioux Falls?
Sioux Falls, baby.
Okay,
That's where my
but
mom is from.
Look,
Fun
look
fact.
at that butt.
this
That's the reason I got it.
Booty's popping.
little
That
man
butt
butt
right
on there,
there. Yeah.
or is that a lady butt?
Is
No,
that
it's a man butt?
is that an
Man butt?
actual statue that exists in the town or something?
I don't know.
Somewhere in the town?
Doesn't matter.
Can't pass up a good butt though.
Can't pass up a
Telling
good
you.
butt.
I've never been to Europe, but I hear
Statement
that
we No further
Statue of
question.
David is unfortunate.
Unfortunate.
What is it?
I mean, need to go there.
No, but yeah. Well, you've seen pictures
They
of
make the
Statue of
sculpture.
David.
Why are there?
Oh,
You talking about the little pee-pee?
yeah.
The
No,
little,
but what I'm
the
saying
little,
is-
the little baby parts.
No.
On a
It
full
was-
grown man.
I believe, and we don't have to go into this right now. Actually, I don't want to, but just to
JJ seems
just to bring
passionate
the
about this.
alternative perspective on that, I think that when they did those statues, they intentionally made the genitals small because there was something. It's just like how like people with like the pale skin were seen as more attractive. It was like I think the people with there was some power thing with like the small representation of the genitals.
It's like the guy
don't
that.
know why.
It's like the stereotype of the guy with the big red truck.
Classic.
Overcompensating.
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't
is
know.
that
But
what
yeah,
the
I think
flex-
I think it was no. I just think it was common to represent the genitals small. I don't know. I think it was a. I think it was a sign of something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well,
I'm just saying. I don't
it's
know.
just interesting.
I don't know if that was the real deal. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the rest of the sculpture isn't.
Pretty lifelike.
Yeah. Well, it's a great physique, right? Who wouldn't want that?
I wonder if that's what David actually looks like.
Would you want to be just okay? Here's a question. Or would you rather? Would you want to be super ripped
Okay.
and nothing you could do would ever change that with a small penis, or just this massive thing? But you're like fatty.
What's the question?
So super ripped all the time, no matter what you eat, anything, small penis. But like the other alternative is like massive penis, and like, you're just like,
I think
big fat guy.
To adequately answer this question, it's just,
I literally can't answer this question,
Yeah.
but I'd take the small penis.
So would I. I think I would too.
But are we in a committed, loving relationship and like you don't got to worry about?
It's all about
dating?
how you work it, brother.
No. This is
Brother?
you were born this way. You
You're
were
just
born this
dropped
way.
in the world, and you gotta.
You were born this way, and you got to figure out a way to live life.
Man,
Yeah.
Justin, don't stress out, bro.
Hey man, they make toys. They make all kinds of things
So would you
to
rather-
pleasure the ladies.
I
I don't know why. This is probably inappropriate start
Yeah.
to this particular podcast.
Yeah. I was thinking
I
the
don't think
same
I can
thing.
answer this. I
This is
just
a Roe v. Wade.
This was not. This
podcast.
wasn't intentional.
Wasn't planned out.
All right.
sorry, guys.
Yeah. Who started this? Justin, Statue,
We
David.
love-
Come on.
we-
Why do
I'm
you?
so sorry I put this shirt on this morning.
How did we get here?
It was
yeah,
the Sioux
just
Falls
butts,
shirt.
man butts, and then
It was
like,
the
Statue
butt.
David.
It's always Sioux
right.
Falls.
I got the synopsis. Roe v. Wade. 19. You were right. 73 lawsuit that famously led to the Supreme Court making a ruling on abortion rights. Jane Roe, an unmarried pregnant woman, filed suit on behalf of herself and others to challenge Texas abortion laws. A Texas doctor joined Roe's lawsuit, arguing that the state's abortion laws were too vague for doctors to follow. He had previously been arrested for violating the statute. At the time, abortion was illegal in Texas unless it was done to save the mother's life. It was a crime to get an abortion or attempt one. In Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decided two important things. One, the United States Constitution provides a fundamental right to privacy that protects a person's right to choose whether to have an abortion. And then also, but the abortion right is not absolute. It must be balanced against the government's interests in protecting health and prenatal life. So
what's interesting is I think because I've never actually fully understood that. I never just people you always hear Roe v. Wade. It's like abortion, no abortion. That's what you think about, right? And this is the basic understanding I think a lot of people have about this.
Right.
Is the fact that Roe v. Wade means abortions are fine, you can have them, and then without that, it's just like, oh, they're all legal. And but it's the thing, we jump to these extremes, right?
right.
To where that right there, that definition says the government, is also supposed to define what's life and what's not. It's almost like you're supposed to define in public in the interest of public health, protecting prenatal life. And so we'll get into that, but it's like
Seems fair.
It seems fair, yeah. And it's not like, again, this is fundamentally my position on this, is the fact that a lot of these, like, overturning this, it wasn't necessary. It's like people were.
It's just going to make it unsafe for women to get abortions.
It's not just that; it's creating more division. Like, that's my big thing. It's just like it's not.
Well, sure, we already had a lot of vision, but this is going to cause women to die, and it's supposed to be pro-life.
I think also we'll see, because like for sure there were stories about a number of states that had these trigger laws that basically went into effect should Roe v. Wade be overturned. And in my understanding, it's how the justices got here was because the Constitution itself does not explicitly mention abortion or the right to an abortion or anything like that. Like, it doesn't actually spell it out, because just hundreds of years ago, like, infant mortality rates were so bad. I mean, everyone just viewed life as a literal gift from God. So it's just, they just didn't have this issue. So because it wasn't clearly spelled out in the initial Constitution, now, because that is the law of the land and how we ended up with this country, with our government and the authoritative bodies, now, the Constitution was created in a way that it could be amended, that it could be changed, but you need like super majorities. So, Roe v. Wade, because you hear a lot of people will talk about it, and I think it's codified, like to codify the decision, I think essentially means like if there were enough like senators and representatives that really wanted to pass legislation about it, like they never passed legislation to actually amend or add to the Constitution about it, because they can never get enough consensus.
Yeah. Can you go to what it being overturned actually means? Basically, just look up the other side of this. Because I think fundamentally before it was always like the argument was like, all right, if murder's illegal, at what point we have to define when it becomes a life? Is it when the baby is physically separated from the mother, at that point does it become its own life, right?
You should also see if, like, because aren't there scenarios where, like, if a mother's giving childbirth and some type of complication and it comes down to, you know, you either have to save the mother's life or the baby's life, that's technically an abortion if you choose to save the
Right.
mother's life.
Yeah.
So
Right.
is that also illegal? Does that?
But fundamentally speaking, that decision, it should always be in favor of the mother every time.
But
Well, that's
even
what I'm
in
saying.
that,
Overturning that, does that take that right away? Is that
I don't think it, I think,
because it's considered
'cause
abortion?
even
it
before,
is, but you know what? I think that there's an overreaction on both sides to any of this, right? And I don't think this is necessarily just said, because even in places, what was it, Alabama that was coming under fire because of whatever, I would be curious to know if they have provisions for those types of things.
That's what I'm curious about.
Mississippi
Also,
had one too.
Some of those southern states.
But this even says though, back in '73, it wasn't a crime. Abortion wasn't a crime if it's done to save the mother's life. So that, I guess, at least in this
So it
specific
needs to have-
example,
so I imagine
they've always had.
it's always one of these things, and it gets frustrating to me because we create these laws, and it was almost like it was kind of kept secret and it was like leaked or something. Is this like they didn't want people to know that this was happening?
Well, because typically you're not supposed to leak, you know, like it came from an internal source that. Yeah, I think it's the first time that there's ever been a Supreme Court decision that was like leaked out ahead of time. Usually they keep that stuff pretty tight.
Do they? Okay, I guess I'm not real familiar, but yeah, for me, it's like I think most of the time when you have two rational people that aren't like outraged and that are willing to sit down and have a conversation, most of the time they'll agree on 90% of stuff, right?
Right.
And it's just like defining these little things about like, okay, when's it okay, when's it not okay? I mean, because a lot of people will say like, okay, you know, you were raped or this happened or the mother's life is in danger. And I mean, I'm in that boat where it's just like, there have to be provisions for this stuff. Like, I mean, you can't,
For sure.
you know, you can't like, and granted, there's people that say like, oh, like, look at this guy, you know, that's the CEO of this company who had this great impact on the world and he was going to be an abortion and all this. Like, well, yeah, I mean, you can't, like that 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 1,000,000 example, it's really hard to be like, okay, what about the other kids that were born into horrible scenarios? And granted, I'm also not in the camp of like, you know, let's just abort babies because they're going to be born into horrible circumstances. But at the same time, it's just like, you also like think about that in your mind. It's like, and my whole thing with this, since this is a, you know, religious podcast, is like, we talk about the religious perspectives on this. And my thing is, and we were talking about this earlier, where you have a mother and you have a child, right? So say some kind of anti-abortion law, whatever, saved a child because she didn't want to go out of state to get an abortion or whatever. And all of a sudden you've turned that person off completely, like to the, you know, whatever faith you're a part of, because you were so like, you've created this barrier, right? So say the child was
They
born.
just feel more judged.
Yeah,
now.
say the child was born and now like you have, you know, from a Christian perspective, like 2 souls going to hell instead of 1 now. Because a baby's aborted, there's like God takes care of that baby, right?
You'd hope so.
It's that, you know, that's the way we understand it. There's just so many different things, there's so many different ways to look at this. And because like the church a lot of times just see this as a win and they'll celebrate it, right? When really all it does is creates kind of an unnecessary law that didn't need to be there, or overturn like an action that didn't really need to happen, right? And because you're gonna have people that like are gonna go travel and do this in another state, or like go find a different way to do it that could be unsafe, like Gabby said. And for me, it's like, all right, we shouldn't be like policing people's actions. Like, I mean, obviously the only cut and dry way, because when something becomes a life is so subjective, you could say, okay, well, it's at 15 weeks, it's a heartbeat, it's at, you know, this kind of function or whatever.
has fingers.
And then the only black and white way to say this is when it leaves the mother's body and there's 2 people, right? Otherwise, it's always part of the mother. So there's always going to be gray area unless you define it at birth, which sucks. And we can judge people all day like, hey, you're a piece of shit for getting an abortion, you know, at 9 months or right before the baby comes out. It's like, you should have made that decision
Yeah.
before. But again, it's like, in my opinion, it's not the religious community, faith community, Christian community, or whatever's job to make these kinds of law. I mean, really, we should be focusing our attention on supplying support to these mothers. Just like, either like, hey, we have this organization, we have
Right.
we can match you with an adoptive family, or we can help you take care of these things. Because a lot of times it's about fear, right? So when a girl walks into an abortion clinic and they see picketers, they feel shame and all this stuff. It's just like, when has shame really led to like lasting life change in anything?
Or at least a healthy version of it. Yeah.
So it's like, we make this illegal. We think, okay, yeah, less people can do this. It's a win. We're saving babies, saving lives. But it's like, well, what have we really done? I mean, we're not, because it's like negative reinforcement instead of positive reinforcement. And that just doesn't lead to like it doesn't lead to conversation. It doesn't lead to, healthy discourse about the topic at all, and understanding, like, a lot of times, okay, I get it for health reasons, of course, like, special cases and all that. But when it just comes to a girl who's really scared, who's got this responsibility, they made a decision they didn't really think about, and like, this and that, and they're just considering the abortion because it's kind of the easy way out. That's where it's like, okay, you could say that's when the church would step in, support these mothers, and just be like, these potential mothers, and just say, hey, we'll walk, alongside you in this, all the way up to the point where you decide, like, hey, you don't want this responsibility. We'll help you with that. We'll find someone who can help with that. So it's kind of like, again, with my camp, what I'm thinking is, it's like the church, again, focusing on the wrong thing. But I don't know. I guess interested to hear people's thoughts on it.
Where you at, Luke?
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from stuff like this is people only tend to think about the woman, and then only tend to think about the baby.
Right.
And that leads to disagreement and discourse, when in reality, both of them matter. So it's like, do I agree with abortion? No, but I don't agree with, like I don't think making it legal or illegal is the solution either. Like, I just think what the tail end of what you said is the most important. Like, if there's a church where a woman can, like, she becomes pregnant, it wasn't planned, she's freaking out, like, I have the benefit of never having that as an option. So for me to think, like, you should never get an abortion, like, it's just, I'm already in the wrong perspective, because I'll never be in that place. But because of that, like, if there was a place where, like, I think the answer is the systems that should be implemented or bettered to take care of that situation, to where the only option for her to have peace isn't to get an abortion. She could walk with people, be taken care of. Like, the fear and shame is not there.
Right.
And ultimately, her decision isn't life or death for a baby. It's like, if I can choose to be the mom because I have this support, or I can choose to give them to a good life instead of, like, that's the win. And so my heart goes for both the baby and the woman. And I know that's messy and hard to have the right answers to, but
So gray.
Yeah.
But none of it's cut and dry, though. It's super, I don't know.
no, I mean, I don't think, I feel like I want to be careful with my words, but, like, what is the reason a woman gets an abortion? What would you say? What would
Probably
y'all?
there's endless amount of reasons.
Yeah, but would you, out of all of those, is it because
Just that they
she
don't
just doesn't
feel
want the baby to live? Like, no,
they
right?
I
Just-
just don't
it
think
was-
that's a question we can answer.
it's without it is impossible. But I think it ultimately comes down to, I don't feel capable of handling this responsibility.
Right.
That's one of the reasons. Sure.
could be one.
One of the reasons. There's a lot.
My
And we
point
can't
is, like-
assume situation.
Or it could be as simple as like you grew up Christian and you're like, I cannot tell my parents that this happened. Like this just has to just go to my grave, kind of a thing.
That's a big reason. Yeah. Well,
Depending on your upbringing, you know, if it was a shameful thing.
Yeah, I guess my point is just if people had an option to where that wasn't the only decision that could
Right.
free them, that's where I go. I don't think.
Yeah, and that's like kind of what I was. I mean, you educate people, you give them options. A lot of people feel like they don't have options.
Right.
So
Well, and I think a critical mistake that hopefully the church does not make right now, because obviously things are very contentious. And I think there's a very, like, you're seeing this very quick visceral reaction of just like, this is a W for the pro-life movement. Like, this is a huge win. Da-da-da. Our prayers are being answered. It's just like the worst thing the church could do right now is celebrate this.
no,
But it's not pro-life.
It's like, well, what
You're
I'm
still-
saying though, is it's
You're not
just
thinking
like,
of the woman's life if you're doing pro-life.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like to think this is a win, like more than anything else, it's like we have to come from a place of compassion and empathy for the people that this like just the idea of now what this means for them potentially. Like it's like you were saying earlier, like if the point of all this is unity, like to celebrate someone else's genuine like fears, like now they're living in a world where it's like I'm concerned because here's the problem. In a perfect world, like, you know, obviously the rape and incest situation is a very different thing, right? But it's like in a perfect world, I would like to believe that at least myself, like I've talked about it before, but I was faced with this in high school and I never thought I would ever be open to abortion or anything like that. But when you're in it, it's just like, whoa. Yeah, you just start to think everything through. And, you know, ultimately, you know, nothing ended up happening. But it's like the hardest part is because I feel like culturally we're very separated. And like we talked about in other podcasts where the comfort is we're so connected to our comfort that like, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but the line is always my body, my choice. And it's not fair because it's the woman that carries it and the man can basically absolve himself from any sense of responsibility.
well, and that's
But what's
tough
sad
with us
is
talking about on this podcast
we just
too. 'Cause
don't.
There's three
and
guys here.
I guess I'm only trying to.
like, yeah.
I'm only trying to bring it up just to like cover all of the like viewpoints because like in one sense, like it is just really kind of crappy that it all falls on the girl and the guy can basically just dip. But like also to that point, I would say like we can't just absolutely avoid and ignore the reality of like when two people sleep together and have like unprotected sex, like this can happen. Like there's like, but have we moved so far in a certain direction culturally where it's happening no matter what? And I agree. Like the problem is we don't have the infrastructure and the programs in place to really be able to come alongside a young girl and say like, hey, there's other options. Like ultimately it's your choice, but there are other options. You know, like from all of what I've heard is like people's experience with adoption is like it's expensive and it's hard.
That's so stupid.
Like we just don't have a good alternative for people. So it's
Yeah.
like, of course, but it's like now, I mean, this is the reality of the world we live in.
And this too, you get
What's
into
the
like
benefit
foster
of-
care. You get into foster care. It's like there are people who will just have an endless number of foster children because they get government assistance for each child that they.
Right.
And then each of those children gets a more negative upbringing because they're all these kids and the mother's really not into it. They just like the free money from the government.
It's just the job.
I feel like that's like one of the
horrible.
biggest scams.
I know.
It's just like, I don't have enough money to take care of my kid. So you're going to take my kid, put it in a house full of other kids and give them money to help support my kid.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Why can't you just
It
give
is
me money?
crazy.
But just like everything, there's also really awesome foster families.
Right.
Like I know a family that does that, and they're just like the greatest people on earth.
Yeah, and I guess the broader issue, you're always going to have that. You're going to have
Right.
good and bad with everything. But the
Yeah.
broader issue, the problem with the way the program is structured, it easily enables like that natural human tendency to just like be selfish.
Sure.
Right.
And that's the problem. Like a program, if it kind of like, if it more so just the way it was structured was able to combat those human tendencies and to where like you'd encourage more good families like
Right.
to be a part of it.
That's where the focus should be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because there are no doubt. I mean, yeah,
Or like
for
tax
sure.
breaks,
It's
something
just-
for people that are willing to go through an adoptive process.
yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's wrong. Like it doesn't make any sense because, like you said, it doesn't actually help solve anything. Like it's like we're just taking like a lot of the church probably world is just taking a big W, sitting back on their couches and then doing nothing to really
No,
help
that's
the
my
issue.
issue, dude. Is with people who like basically don't do anything to like actually help these
Right.
these girls that are in need,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just like sitting there like, oh well, you know, this is why I vote.
Answered
so
prayers,
They can
yeah.
all do the work. It's just
Exactly.
like what the heck.
Yeah.
And those are
I
the
heard a
worst type
statistic
of
once
worst
that,
type of
like,
people.
out of 100% of people, like 80% of people voice their opinions and only 20% actually work,
Yeah.
do something about it. And it's like stuff like this, the 80% is super loud, but they stay over there in the 80% and they never
Yeah.
make the decision to.
So
that's
Justin,
frustrating.
you had did you have pulled up what it actually means, what recently happened?
So yeah, it essentially says because the Constitution they rule that because the Constitution doesn't specifically mention abortion, that ultimately now, like it's like anything else that's not spelled out in the Constitution, it is handled on a state by state basis. So to amend or ratify the Constitution, you need a massive supermajority. They've never been able to get enough one way or the other because there's just always been two camps. And so now it basically says that each state will get to determine ultimately, and the voters in each state will get to determine like when do we consider a life, and because I mean my personal thing is it's heartbreaking that this is where we are, but this is the reality of where we are. And so, you know, a lot of people say like safe, legal, and rare when it comes to it. Like,
So they're basically saying that because it's not specifically talked about in the Constitution, that
Which
it's,
is old as
it's
shit.
not. Well, right. But that's the whole point. Like, so their argument would be that the Constitution was created to be able to like evolve and change, but it requires like 65, I don't know if it's 2/3 of the states have to vote to amend the Constitution or something like that. So you just need a supermajority to like, and they've never been able to do that in the last 50 years.
they're just leaving it up to the states, basically. I mean,
Well,
that's the bottom line,
So
right?
their argument would be the judges on the Supreme Court in 1973 basically created a federal law through this right to privacy that wasn't specifically spelled out in the initial.
That's how a
original
lot of case
Constitution.
law is, though.
Right.
And which is
But that's-
crazy because it's hard to keep track of everything.
But that's where even like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, R.I.P., even she was on the record many times saying it was like it's on shaky ground. Like this is probably potentially going to get overturned because it's just legally not really solid law. Just if depending on the interpretation and how crazy, like we've talked about this, like it's almost like, dude, there might be a God because like the odds that Trump was in there for one term and had 3 justices croak.
Well, isn't
is
most of the
insane.
justices that are on the like panel or whatever you call it, aren't they most of them
mostly-
appointed by presidents who weren't reelected?
Oh,
I don't. Oh, that'd be an
I don't
interesting
know.
stat. I don't know, but yeah, I mean,
I
he got.
feel like I heard that.
I mean, he put 3 of them on there and he didn't
wouldn't
get
be-
reelected.
I
Let's
wouldn't
talk
be
about this
surprised.
Justice Clarence Thomas because he's a real dickhead.
what did he do?
So
I don't know anything about it.
he's
I love
also
Justice Thomas.
Oh, here
Justin.
we go.
That might ruin our friendship because so the Supreme Court must revisit. So Justice Clarence Thomas wrote that they explicitly called on the court to overrule the watershed civil rights ruling in Griswold v. Connecticut, Lawrence v. Texas, and Obergefell v. Hodges.
What were those
What are
cases
the
about?
decisions?
All right, Griswold versus Connecticut is which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects the liberty of married couples to buy and use contraceptives without government restriction.
Okay. He overturned that?
That's what they're calling on the
But-
court to overrule that.
The
So
problem
there's three
is-
that they're wanting to eventually overrule as well.
All right.
Because and
What
how
were the other ones?
how does the process work though? Where like who decides what cases are even considered by the Supreme Court?
That's a good
How does
question.
that even work?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
Because
But you're saying Justice Thomas specifically called for these cases to be looked at again. Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. So the
Yeah.
one about contraceptive.
So the one about contraceptive, Lawrence v. Texas, basically makes same-sex sexual activity illegal.
that's
Yeah, and then
That's stupid.
Obergefell v. Hodges is gay marriage.
All right. Your Justice Thomas got some splaining to do.
well, I'd have to hear it. But well, I mean, half of the thing that sucks is like
This dude came straight out of the Old
these people
Testament.
would be considered what like they consider originalists,
like-
which just means like I read the Constitution. This is the law of the land, and my only job is to interpret what this document says regarding this court case.
Well, and now
So
there's
it's
people
like-
like Anita Hill is. What didn't she come out a long time ago about how
Well, she
Clarence
was the
Thomas-
one that, yeah, but
Like-
they did the same thing with Kavanaugh. It was like gang rapist, and you're like, well,
was it false?
they didn't prove anything, and then they still voted him in.
Yeah. So
They just
I don't agree with
That's tough.
overturning any of those. Like that's
That's the thing. Like, how can
stupid.
you
mean,
overturn? How can you make
that's stupid.
abortion illegal, but then wipe out contraceptives as well?
No, that's
that doesn't make
dumb.
any sense.
That's dumb.
This is how weird, and this is not bashing on like Democrats. I don't care. I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this yesterday, and I was out disc golfing. While I was disc golfing, I had a podcast going, and I just started laughing because it was like this like you have these people that are just like, so the most recent Supreme Court justice to be voted in, she's replacing Justice Breyer, I believe, and she's like the first black woman on the Supreme Court. And so it's like, obviously we make a big deal about, it's like, this is the first African-American female ever to sit on the Supreme Court in 250 years. Like, this is amazing. And then you like flash forward to a clip of like the Senate, like senators asking her in confirmation hearings, what is a woman? And she can't answer. It's like, we're just living such weird times where it's like, we have to have our first female black judge.
Yeah,
and then
that's
it's also
tough.
like, we can't define what a female is anymore because everything is fluid.
The thing is, if you go too far into progressivism,
It's just like, it starts to break your brain.
It contradicts each other. Like, so you can't celebrate like we have the first female president if you can't say like, okay, yeah, there's a difference between male and
But
female.
boys can be girls.
Yeah. So, well, I don't. That's a different thing. But I'm just saying, like, you can't
just- we're just
celebrate.
in weird-
You just
we're a
can't.
weird
It's like,
place.
how do you celebrate the first for any woman, right? When you're not in agreement on what a woman is, right? Like, so it's just like,
well, it's just funny to me.
is that if we're gonna go down that road to the extreme, it's like, okay, well, she's just another person who gets.
Which is
gets
also
appointed.
hilarious because then it comes full circle and you're like, okay, so
Which I
was
think is
thinking about this.
ridiculous. It should be celebrated, right? Like,
For sure.
yeah, it's huge.
For sure. I think it's an interesting balance of like, there is absolutely value in honoring heritage and loving where you came from and all of that stuff. You should never have to feel shame or anything negative about who you are and where you came from. But I think there's a greater like call to just like all like we literally sing it in children's church. Red and yellow, black and white, they have precious in his sight. Jesus, all the children of the world, whatever. Like it's beautiful that we come from different places, but like the most important thing always has to be that we are just all human and no one is more important. And it's like, that's why personally, I think people like Martin Luther King are remembered. Why they have holidays in their honor because it's like, this was the guy that was like, he had every right to hate white people because like historically it's not been great for black people in this country. You can't deny that. But Martin Luther King, in my mind, or my opinion, is just immortalized because he was the one that was willing to say, like, it's time to put all the weapons down. And we just have to, like, his whole speech, like, I have a dream that's like the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Like, Martin Luther King himself, it was just like, stop making it about skin color. Like, but how do we balance this thing?
I don't know. I mean, so as it comes to this court case specifically, I'm still a little cloudy on like what it means. Like what changes? I mean, because
Well, now the states get to
It just comes
decide.
down to the states.
Like it'll be different in every state.
But wasn't that the case anyway? Weren't the nuances decided by state? Because you always heard like New York's doing something, California's doing something.
Yeah, I guess.
Texas is doing some things. Like I felt like that was already
Yeah.
a state regulated thing. So what we're just like reaffirming that it's a state regulated thing?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just like, because that's the thing. Like, if nothing changes, why the hell are we creating all of this like dissension?
Well, something
people wanna
has to be
get
changing.
votes.
Yeah, but I'm just, if the states were able to control it anyway,
So
like, why?
I think now states have the ability to just outright say never, unless like
What
how it used
state
to be
is
in
gonna do
Texas.
that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't
Texas will probably do that.
I don't know
right?
that we'll just outright.
I don't think
ban
so.
it.
I think a lot of
I think Texas
guess we'll have
is
to
getting a
see.
little more. I mean, with it, honestly.
But even look at like Florida, where like it's kind of gone a little more. I mean, it's probably considered like a purple state. Like it's
Yeah,
been Republican
yeah, I
lately,
think-
but it's
sure.
It could go either way.
Yeah, right.
But I think people. I don't know. I think like,
Florida
in
would
my opinion-
would never outlaw that. I mean, they would never do that.
Well, that's why I don't
as
know.
much as, but
I
you
think
look at
Florida's-
someone on the other side, like right, who's extreme about women's rights. And
I mean,
stuff,
like a
they would
Montana.
be like, oh no, it's getting banned everywhere. It's like we always go to the worst case. It's just like the gun thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like okay, we're gonna now require psych evals. And then everyone who's like all friendly to the NRA are going to be like, well, first it's this. What's next? They're going to take all the guns. Mm-hmm. Literally will never happen, but it's a freak out moment, right? And now it's like it just creates an inflammation in our country and it's disease that doesn't need to be there.
Well, all the players at the table are just all they're doing is using all of these things that happen and trying to figure out ways to get votes to get back into
No,
power.
I know.
Or to
I
keep
need to
power.
I need to tweet this. I need to say this thing so that everyone knows that I'm on their team. Yeah, and it's just like, it's so stupid.
So
Again,
Yeah,
an
it's
issue
crazy.
that would be resolved if we didn't have career politicians. Just saying.
yeah, they need term limits.
It's not just term limits, dude. It's like shouldn't even be a job. Shouldn't even be a job that you can like make a career out of. That's the point.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so here's the problem. It's like once you're in it for so long, then like I mean, look at like hasn't Biden been like a senator for like 50 plus years?
Yeah.
She's like, dude, you haven't had a real job. Like, I'm not saying it's an easy job, but I'm just saying like to actually understand what typical American people are going through.
No, exactly. That's what it is.
Like, we just
That's
don't
what-
have-
and I've brought this up before, but that's what it used to be. Used to have like vocational like people
Yeah.
come in and do this thing for a few months, and then
And you
that's
see it on both sides. I mean, all those guys. at
both
the
sides.
top
Yeah, for sure.
have been there for decades.
Everyone.
You're just like, that's not good for
The whole
anything.
career politician thing, because that opens the door for a lot of different things that we don't like lobbying, which like influences.
It's absurd that's legal.
Oh, it's insane. But I mean, these corporations have so much power. It's like, it's like now you can't imagine a world without it. Like, what would that look like? It would be, I mean, yeah, I wish they would get rid of it, but that's never going to happen. Yeah, no, it's just crazy.
I saw this thing yesterday where it was like plumbers like need a license, right, to be able to plumb. Like
plumb.
you need a license to be able to drive. You need a
Plumb
license
harder than me, baby.
to be able to do like all these like so many different careers. You need a license to do them.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't like the people in our government like need to go like study
licensed?
politics
Shoot.
and like get licensed in
Shoot.
They
politics?
should probably have to pass a test.
It's just a popularity contest at this point.
Start with a cognitive test just to begin with, because that's the thing. Is like you get some of these guys have been there for so long. Like on both
People
sides,
are
like
so old.
y'all are so freaking old.
Yes.
Go retire, man.
They're
Like,
so old.
get out of here, bro.
Yeah.
That was
Can
the
you
whole
imagine
pass
these
that
people, like-
Italian
I don't
baton.
disagree. with
These
any of that.
justices, do you think they like go out to the grocery store and like go shopping and stuff? Or,
No,
like,
they don't
Not
do that.
anymore.
They
They
got
can't put their-
drivers. They got
Yeah.
like all this. Yeah. They don't know what American life is like.
Well,
I can only imagine like
and after this situation with the leaked like memo or whatever, like they've been having a bunch of like protests outside of their personal residences.
they're
So
probably
now
living
like,
off the grid.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, I'm
living
just like,
in their
dude, I'm
bunker.
not leaving.
Yeah, because
I'm
aren't
not
all
leaving
these
the Capitol
aren't the
building.
justices their name and addresses out there and all that?
They doxed them. I forget. who put the information out there, but yeah.
That guy needs
That's
to go to
messed
jail,
up,
whoever
yeah.
that was.
Well, and it's actually so okay. It's actually also there is a federal statute. It's illegal to protest at the house of a sitting Supreme Court justice because it's like,
Creates influence.
well, yeah,
People
like
get
you're
scared.
not.
They got
like
yeah.
it's illegal to try to intimidate or coerce a judge to
You know what?
rule the way you
know
want
what
him to.
I hate, generally speaking? I don't know if it's a Florida thing. I don't know if it's a national thing. But if you serve in jury duty, your name is public. Isn't that garbage?
Yeah, that's weird.
Every time, because when you go, they tell you this stuff. Because I asked a question, I was like, "Is my name like public if I
that-
serve on a jury?"
Wasn't there
Like,
a
yeah.
big like?
I'm just
the
like,
whole
dude,
George
no,
Floyd
so-
thing.
so
they
if I-
like, leaked the name of the jurors and stuff like that. It was like a big old.
It's not. It doesn't even have to be that high profile. I guess if I'm on a jury and I send some guy who's like this, I mean, you know, like leader of some kind of like small cartel or something.
I don't want him to know my name.
No, I don't want him or his
Right.
people knowing my name.
First time they get a phone call, they're going to be like, look up that jury list.
Yeah, no, it's just
Kill them all.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Whack
stupid.
them.
So I just
Those
wanted to
people
bring
don't
that up
Kill 'em
because
all
I
in the
just
family.
I think the fact that information is public
That's
is absurd.
insane.
It's absurd.
That makes no sense.
I
That was
know.
racist.
No,
Never
that's why
done
that was
jury
my
duty.
big resistance to it. Like, period. I mean, granted, like,
But you can like put on a good front, and then they'll like.
oh, for sure.
They'll-
Yeah, if you go
they'll
in
kick you
there,
out.
yeah, for sure. If you go in there saying that, like, you know, I mean, granted, I think what got me out of
Be like, I'm afraid I will literally do what anyone tells me to do.
well, my thing,
I have no.
I've
ability
been
to think for
called a couple
myself.
times, but the time I actually went into the courtroom and started getting asked questions, I was like, "Yeah, I have guns," because it was about armed robbery. So it was like, if you're a pro gun owner, you're going to want to
They're
put
not
this
gonna-
guy away.
yeah.
So it's like, you know, I just told him, I was like, yeah, I mean, I may have laid
I
it
love
on.
my guns so
I may
much.
have laid it on a little
I
thick.
sleep with them every night.
Yeah, it's
I've
just
never
like-
actually been questioned. Like, I've gone to jury duty, but they've like got their people before I was even
Oh, really?
brought up. Yeah.
Nice. So like, yeah, if they take you in, all they do is like, because they take like 40 people, I don't know how many people, and then they take them up to the room. They start each of the, I guess like the you know, defense attorney and the, you know,
Yeah, I would not want
The
to
other
be in
guy,
jury
I
duty
forget
for
what
a
is that.
big case.
yeah. Oh, that would be
Defendant,
awful.
the
No, the
prosecutor.
prosecutor. Yeah, they get to ask all the questions and
Because
throw people out.
whenever it comes down to the jury, it has to be a unanimous decision, right? Mm-hmm. Well, because even if there's even one juror that doesn't agree, it's
It's a hung jury, right?
Yeah.
Even for the Scranton Strangler.
I think so.
I don't know. We'd have to ask Dwight about that one.
That's kind of the crazy. Yeah, that's kind of the crazy reality.
I
It's
love
like,
that. Was like his 15
I
minutes
know.
of fame.
Yeah, he lived.
Yeah, he just like came in glowing every time. Like, oh, you want to talk about it?
He's like, I can't talk
I
about
can't
it.
talk about it, but I love that show.
It's classic.
So good.
But yeah, term limits need to be like for justices. I think they need to be shorter. Lifetime term is kind
A
of
lifetime appointment.
I think that's dumb. I mean, because you know, think about how many people are going to lose cognitive ability before their term's up,
Yeah, I guess
before they retire.
I would be okay with a lifetime appointment if we're like what Guy was saying. Like if there's like, okay, we're making sure these people have all their faculties. Like,
Yeah, no, that needs to be
well,
a thing.
because of how contentious it is now, it's like someone like an RBG, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like she was so old.
freaking goat.
She's incredible, but it's like because of the climate that we've created, it's like, listen, lady, you got to survive until we get someone in office. Like you can't leave because there's a Republican president, and vice versa. Like now it's like no Republican justice can leave because we have like. I don't know. I don't even know how to get back from this place because we're just like.
Well, I mean,
so
imagine the type
divided.
of influence that we don't even see on the surface.
Yeah.
That these people these people have to. They're probably get threats. They probably get like all kinds of like, you know, tugs here and there, you know, to rule in certain things, certain ways. It's insane. It's so corrupt. And we probably honestly have one of the most low key corrupt countries in the world.
Yeah.
But it's the best at keeping it covered. We just we because we under the guise of freedom, no one questions it.
We like our comfort.
I feel like
you
I
know?
saw a video from someone somewhere in Europe, and they were like, "We like talk so highly of the United States, and it's like we're dreams are made of, like the American dream, and like all these movies come out of America, and like all this music comes out of America." And they're like, "But if we stepped into the shoes of the average The average American, it's like not as glamorous as.
Right.
Yeah, that's because a lot of people, especially in Europe, and other countries, because I see this on Reddit. So Reddit is just a crazy place, but it has a lot of people, like it's people all over the world, right? So a lot of people all over the world commenting on American things happen in other countries, Americans comment on all this stuff, but it's pretty obvious a lot of times when someone is from another country and they kind of want to stick it to America. It's just like, and they just make some sarcastic comment. Oh, I love how people in your country, blah, 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 right? Like, so it's just like, people love to attack Americans. Like, and I never, like, if you go on Reddit, you will not get that sense of like, America's the best place because everyone shits on America on Reddit.
Well, yeah, I know they've been shitting on us recently.
No, I mean, but no one, like, I think a lot of people, that consume the type of media that would say that would like make them think that we're representing ourselves that way aren't really paying attention. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's a shit show.
Well, it's just like me going on any kind of like, talk radio or like, mainstream TV channel, news channel, and just like eating it all up without questioning anything. Right. I think that's what other countries, all they have is like what they're exposed to. And I feel like they look at like what is represented on the news as like what all Americans think of America. I mean, I don't think we're the best country. Like, granted, like I know like in the way of like patriotism, yes, I love my country. Like, I'm glad I'm here. Right. Like, but
Yeah.
to just say you're the best is like, I mean, we've talked about this before. We're not the best in many things, if anything.
Yeah,
right?
we suck at like education.
Like all these categories, we are
Yeah.
totally pooping the bed there.
We are reversing our carbon emissions, though. Yay, us.
At least there's that.
I heard a funny stat the other day too that was talking about like 40% of like the electricity that we use to power electric cars comes from natural gas. So
Natural
we're
gas.
using,
I mean,
like-
I don't
Isn't the
think
whole
there's.
point to get away from like fossil fuels.
Yeah,
We're
but I
like
don't-
using fossil fuels
Well,
to
okay.
power our
There's an
electric
argument. There's an
cars.
argument against oil because of the carbon. Whatever it
Like the exhaust.
emits, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think natural gas is clean, right? It's just a fossil fuel still, right?
It's just finite. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the push towards renewable.
Sure, and I get that, but like you can't make. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think you can make the claim that that's a dirty fuel, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. nothing
Unless the
about
process of getting it is just dirty.
it. I just thought it was a funny statistic. I was just like,
all that, the
What's
whole
the point of
industry,
all this?
all those industries are dirty.
I mean, I love
Solar
I love
power-
Teslas.
solar
I think-
power's dirty.
I think it'd be dope to have electric cars, but one of my favorite, like, have you ever seen the pictures side by side of like a lithium mining plant versus like a pipeline that just carries gas throughout the country?
Yeah.
It's so funny because like the lithium
yeah.
plant is just like we just dug up the whole earth and it's just massive crater, and then there's this picture of like a pipeline just.
I would
planted
say
underground.
to that argument, it's it's a lot now. I think we have to do a lot of that now, but I don't think we have to do a lot of that forever. I think battery technologies get better. We'll be able to recycle batteries.
Right.
Batteries will last longer. I think ultimately that's solved, but I think the beginning of any industry is dirty. Like, you know what I mean? You can't get away from that.
Well, and they're just.
But
they're
yes,
trying
it's
to
easy.
force it before we're really ready for it.
No.
We
I don't
even
agree with
have
that.
the-
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with like shutting down that pipeline or whatever they did and stuff like that. And I don't agree with that comparison. I just don't think that's fair.
That's fair.
Especially right now, because you're looking at the birth of an industry and you're looking at one that's been established
Yeah.
to where all the regulations and stuff have already taken effect, and like the battery thing's still a sketch because no one's done it.
Well, and even that gets into this whole messiness of politics and lobbyists, and you have all these people that are just like have these interests to keep fossil fuels. You have all these other people that are trying to shut it down. It's like, guys, like
The problem with a lot of this stuff is greed. Like, all right,
You want me to do it?
Am I grabbing that one?
This is an urgent. This package needs to be delivered to a person.
the
probably
Amazonian.
Corey.
The Amazonian has arrived.
Yeah, Corey always selects the. Make sure someone. Make sure
He
you
makes sure
actually get a
someone sign it.
signature or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that
Make sure you
so
paste that.
What were we saying?
Whatever
Paste.
you cut something. Make sure you paste it in the LOI negotiation.
Oh, I moved it.
You did move it?
I dragged it. Yeah,
Anyway, so
it was a Cummings Street,
so yeah, I think
which
that,
is an odd name of a street. Just gonna say that
Cumming Street.
Cummings.
Well, there's Cumming, Georgia, is a place in Atlanta.
Some things just
Yeah.
age so funny.
So badly, yeah. Yeah. So what I was saying, yeah, solar power is another thing. It's just like, I agree. Like I believe in solar power. I have friends who have companies in solar, like that are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of crooked companies out there.
I got smoked.
Sales companies, dude, that
Got
are just
smoked
like
for mine.
that. Like see this. They just want to take advantage of people's like, you know, a lot of people's genuine willingness to go green. Mm-hmm. You know, granted, ultimately the idea is to save money in your electricity because energy bills are getting higher, but a lot of people are just like, you get some people's like greedy fingers on this stuff, and they'll just like take advantage of people.
Right.
And all this stuff where it's just like, they'll be like, hey, you know what? We'll just, we'll inflate the cost of what we say this was to put on so you can get a bigger tax break. It's just like, all right. And then there's a spot where like this government involvement, really does worse because it causes like people to gouge people for both of their benefit. They're really, so they're screwing the government for like the person and the installer to get a better. This is dumb.
Dude,
And
I
it's just,
got
how do you
smoked.
fix that? Again, it's just like, you can't fix, and this goes with this whole thing. It's like, you can't fix people's natural tendencies to be greedy pieces of crap.
Oh, dude.
But
horrible.
the only way to fix that is through like moral influence. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you should just be encouraged to be a good person, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not what like a lot of Christians choose to do. They don't choose to encourage that. They choose to be like, all right, well, yeah, let's just yell at people who are doing the wrong thing and make it so that they can't do the wrong thing.
Super tribal, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, just because we can then force people's hand, that makes it right. Like,
Yeah.
no, like, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess end of the day, we'll see what the church does and how it reacts. But hopefully, they start to really put some energy and effort and resources into like actually helping women that are going through these really hard decisions.
Part of this thing too is just like, I always feel like, I'm a dude. It's tough for me. I almost think it's just like, all right, let's just leave half the country out of this vote. It's just like, if you're a woman, vote on this, and if not, then not. Like,
One thing that's really
It's just
tricky
like,
too.
Well, you
that's,
can't do that because you know what the answer would be.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I think
then that's
the polls-
then that's their decision. And then like I said, like the church just makes a conscious effort to really like support
Yeah.
women. So I mean that's that but it's just like a lot of times it's just like yeah, I don't know what the male equivalent of that would be, but then it's just like having females
Did you schedule your vasectomy?
no, I did not. Was that a separate question?
Well, it's just very
that
random.
sounds so intense. I'm not gonna say what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
'cause
no.
I, like
He's like, if you were to make men, what are you thinking?
just boys need to stop being stupid little boys. Like if you're gonna have sex, I'm sorry, this can be a little crude, but like work on your pullout game, bro, or wear a condom. Like, come on, dude.
I agree.
I just don't like. I'm not proud of everything I've ever done in my life, but it's like I know there's one way to get someone pregnant, and if I'm gonna engage,
I will say
a sexual activity,
Yeah.
we're for sure making sure.
Because like
we're gonna be
the
safe.
friends that I've had who have had unexpected,
don't get it.
unexpected or unplanned pregnancies, right? The guy friends that I have, it's almost like you talk to them, and it's just a defense mechanism. It's almost like they just don't know how babies are made.
You're like, so you just couldn't, couldn't.
I mean, they just like
you just couldn't.
Well, I didn't know. I thought, like one guy.
There's only one way for it to happen. You
When
couldn't
I was in
make
college,
sure
like
that
one
didn't
guy
happen.
was just like, well, I thought she was taking care of the birth control. It's like, well, that's not something you talked about before you just went raw, my guy.
My guy.
Still, like even in that scenario, I'm just like, this was just maybe because I was just like I lived in fear of like if I'm gonna like be sexually active, like I cannot have a child, like so that was always my mentality. But it's like even if a girl is on birth control, I'm just like,
Yeah, it can
still
still
not
happen.
taking the chance, dude. Like it's like, how in your mind do you not realize this could happen? Mm-hmm. Like it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think, but all that to say, I think one of the saddest things that we're living in, like I've seen like studies that have shown like the single most important thing when it comes to like a child's success in life, like they've, I guess the study was looking at just all the different individual factors that would affect like a child and how they grow and mature and succeed or whatever. But the most important factor was having a father in the home. Like the quickest way to really statistically drop off and kind of set a kid up for failure is, and maybe it's more or less a single parent type of household, which is,
Well,
it's hard.
I think
'cause some people
I think
shouldn't
it
stay
could be
together just for kids, but
sure, but I think it's good for a you know kid to have male and female influences in their life
for sure.
But as far as home, it could just be different perspectives too. It's just like, you know, the guy perspective, girl perspective. A lot of times those are way different. Like me and my wife are opposites.
Well, here's an
So
interesting
it's just
concept
like,
too.
you know, because of a kid's raised, think about it, with like just one parent, and that's got to be so tough. And like the parent probably doesn't have the time and attention to give that kid, you know, to like teach them the things that they need to be taught and like do all that stuff because they're busy working to provide for the kids. And there's so many things that go into that. And I think male influence is important.
Well, and here's an interesting. I've heard it said like this before too. It's like even more so because
But
I
I'm
agree.
saying even single
There's
dads, their kids could likely end up in that scenario.
Well, right,
Just
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like
having two
Yeah, you
parents in the
can't-
house, I feel like is always an advantage
period. Yeah, I just
for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an impossible situation because it like at first requires people just like the men just need to stand up and like own it. Like if that happens, like it's like, dude, all right, well, don't just leave her out there high and dry to figure it out herself. Like, so be supportive. Like,
Yeah, I think either way, and
because I feel like that was as a massive part of it is like,
But I've
women
also
feel
seen-
like they're going to be left to deal with this alone.
I've also seen where it's a crappy situation, but it's just like people think that they get pregnant, they have to marry that person. That's not.
Oh, for sure. Like, in,
but
church
I'm
world,
just in the church world, people feel that pressure,
right.
and that's stupid. Like I mean, I used to think kind of that way, right? Because it's kind of how I was brought up. But then, like, you know, I got to college age, you see all this stuff happening around you where people choose to get married because they have because they got pregnant. And I'm like, well,
It's not.
you
like
didn't
a
really know this
solution.
is-
Yeah.
you didn't even know this person you should be like.
I mean, I had a good buddy that basically that happened. They got pregnant on accident, and then all of a sudden they're like getting married.
Yeah, and then
And-
they have
and then they
horrible.
end up-
they're modeling a horrible
And
marriage,
then
like a lot of
later,
times.
now they're divorced. It was really messy. I mean, it's just
It has a huge effect on that kid. It'd have been better if they hadn't got married and they just find someone else. You know, yeah. There's a lot. This is
it's just messy.
it's not it's not easy. But yeah. So
Stay weird, stay alive, right?
stay weird, stay alive. That's it.
Am I right?
I say stay weird, stay rude, stay alive.
Stay rude.
Yeah,
I like
don't
that too.
don't be afraid to be rude.
gotta be so rude.
Yeah. Well, we're about an hour. I gotta get going here, but cool. We made it through, and we're all still friends, right, Justin,
Yeah.
Gabby?
We're all still really
Yeah.
good friends.
Yeah.
We're gonna disc golf later.
talk
Yeah,
it
maybe
out.
we can talk about Clarence some more.
I need to see the actual comments, but he is a staunch Christian man, so you know,
Yeah.
I would differ on a lot of that stuff. I think it's silly for all of human history. Like, people have been sexually attracted to
Well,
men or women, or I mean, it's not like it's not like this
and
is like a
what I'm
new
saying.
thing.
It's okay to disagree with people, disagree on certain things. The fact that we're all sitting here trying to have a nuanced discussion about different like specific topics is good. A lot of times people will just be like, "Oh, you like identify with this guy, or you like some of the things this guy said." Well, you're just fully in that camp then.
You're my enemy now. Yeah.
You're and that happens both sides, happens with everybody, right? And it's just like, no, like just because you like Donald Trump doesn't make you Donald Trump, right? Like, but you know, a lot of people would think that, you know what I mean? And you know, just because you voted for Joe Biden doesn't mean like you're all in that camp, you know, head over heels, right? Like that just means that, you know, it's just like that's the person you chose and you felt was most appropriate given whatever your background.
Didn't have the best options that year.
Sure. Yeah.
It's strange.
But what
It was a
you know,
weird
but
one.
what I
Yeah.
mean is like, you know, you can never judge like just based on one thing. Like, you
Should have
know,
voted Kanye.
should have voted Kanye. Yeah.
Dude, can you
all have
imagine
regrets we
if
have to live
Kanye
with.
was the president mid divorce and like Pete Davidson's still trolling him and he's the president of the United States? How crazy.
Kim K would have been the hottest first lady ever.
She probably would have stayed with him.
I think we would have.
I think you can't leave the sitting president, or at least probably would have wrote it
I
out.
think we would have been nuked by now.
I didn't realize. I saw a clip of.
He would have released a diss album if
Yeah. How long have Kim and Kanye been, or how long were they together? That long?
they were together for a while. Yeah.
Because like I heard her like recently on a clip for their new show. Like basically, like I haven't dated in like I don't know how many, like 10, 20 years or something like that.
Well, definitely not 20 years, but
But I
probably
just
close
remember
to
hearing
10.
the word and I was just like,
Because you gotta
that
think-
can't be right.
you got to think how old is North?
North?
Is that the oldest one?
Yeah, I don't know.
She's probably 6, 7. I mean, they were probably together for a few years before.
Crazy. What a
For
come up.
while.
Crazy.
I didn't know that Kanye was like so invested in her fashion and like everything she wore and her makeup and all that stuff.
Did she own it? Did he own part of it?
He just always advised her on like what
Because she's
to
got her
wear
like
and-
skin like that whole.
I don't think
mean-
he did that, but anyways, JJ's got to go. What to Quan? Bye.
See ya.
Stay weird.